in the air, it's a slightly different story because obviously you've taken the right amount of fuel for you to get to your destination and have a diversion, and suddenly England is closed, or Britain is closed. And you can't, all your normal diversion airports aren't available. So you have to then, we have a decision making model that we fall back on to help us to decide what the next least worst option is. So there will have been, northern France will have filled up very quickly, Amsterdam, Belgium, possibly even Denmark will have been filling up very quickly with aircraft that were unable to land in the UK and needed to go somewhere else.
Lots to come here on the programme. We're trying to get to the bottom of what happened yesterday at NATS. Air traffic control in the UK failed, grounding planes causing significant delays. At least 80 flights were cancelled. Multiple sources said there was an issue with the flight radar in the London area, affecting journeys nationwide. And NATS, the UK's air traffic controller, has said the technical issue was at its control centre in Hampshire. Emma Henderson is a former airline pilot and author who joins us. Good morning, Emma.
Good morning, Rosie.
It's intensely frustrating. There's a 20-minute disruption that then caused such a significant problem that went on for hours. What do you think went wrong?
Well, as always with these things, we need to wait for them to find out, don't we? But they're saying it's a problem with radar, and the London control area covers most of the country. So it turns into Scottish control, sort of just south of the border. And London controls everything, right the way down, halfway across the channel, you get handed over to France or, over to Dutch air traffic control. So when something happens with the London control area, it just affects everything flying in and out of the country. And I think flights going west yesterday from places like Liverpool were largely unaffected. But otherwise, it just means everything grinds to a halt. And even a 20-minute blockage has such a massive knock-on effect, because if you think about the number of flights that are landing and departing at every airport particularly around the southeast of England, you can't just sort of slot them in the same way as if you have a blockage on a motorway. You can't just, cars can't just suddenly appear on the motorway any more than aircraft can suddenly sort of jump into the flight. There's still scheduled flights to continue.
And there's little capacity in the system right in the middle of the summer holidays. For the pilots, which of course you used to be, what message would they have received when they realised, right, something's gone wrong, you've either got to be grounded or worse, turn around when you're already in the air?
So everybody who was on the ground, either down route in places like Spain or wherever, or even coming in from the US, if you're on the ground, that generates something called a slot delay. So you get a message in the flight deck on a printed out piece of paper that prints out in the cockpit, and that tells you you've got a slot, and it'll just come through and you'll see the word slot and there'll be a number after it, which is the time. So your worst case scenario is you're down route getting ready to leave, and then a message will come through saying you've got a slot in 5 hours' time, and you think, what on earth has just happened? So that's how they will have been informed. And then that will be a case of managing that on the ground. But on the ground you have options, because you can get everybody off the aircraft, and if it's going to be that long a delay, you can deplane people. In the air, it's a slightly different story, because obviously you've taken the right amount of fuel for you to get to your destination and have a diversion, and suddenly England is closed, or Britain is closed. And you can't, all your normal diversion airports aren't available. So you have to then, we have a decision making model that we fall back on to help us to decide what the next least worst option is. So there will have been, northern France will have filled up very quickly, Amsterdam, Belgium, possibly even Denmark will have been filling up very quickly with aircraft that were unable to land in the UK and needed to go somewhere else.
Will you be told at that moment what the problem is, or just how long the delay is, or where you need to go?
No, you'll just get a message from air traffic control. Usually it will be air traffic control saying you're unable to enter this airspace, you need to divert. So you're never told what's happened.
It throws so many plans into disarray, doesn't it? What is the pilot's view, do you think, from your colleagues, former colleagues of NATS, of air traffic control?
Well, actually, we come back into the UK and we're always delighted to speak to NATS air traffic controllers because we're home. They are the controllers themselves are arguably some of the best in the world, and they do a very, very good job with a very small piece of airspace, which is very, very busy. So, as pilots, we can't knock them. But obviously, airlines are going to be asking what went wrong because that delay yesterday is going to cost millions of pounds. There's no capacity in the system. So, if you take an example just of a holiday flight to Spain, for example, if that was cancelled yesterday, there's not another flight today with loads of seats on it available for all the passengers from yesterday to be able to travel. That flight's just gone. So then how do you get passengers to and from the destination they're supposed to be going to? And obviously airlines are then the front line of that because passengers don't look at the problem and say, oh, well, it's obviously air traffic control. It's not, it's out of our control. They blame the airline. And they say, well, it's EasyJet's fault or it's BA's fault that they ruined my holiday. And that's damaging to brands. So airlines will not be happy about that and obviously will be wanting answers. But as pilots, you know, we obviously want things like that to work, but our job is to get people to and from their destination safely. And if that means sitting on the ground and waiting, then that's a management issue for us. We have to manage that situation in the air. We have to manage that situation because ultimately we need to land the aircraft safely, and it's not our position really to judge whether or not NATS has done the right thing or not. But I can understand why obviously the airlines will be asking those questions.
Yeah, and you're dealing with a plane full of, I'm sure, frustrated passengers as well. Emma, thank you so much. Brilliant to hear what it's like sort of in the practical realities of sitting in at the cockpit when these things go wrong. Former airline pilot and author Emma Henderson there.